All right, everybody. Let me just give it a couple minutes right before, a couple seconds, not really minutes. We'll give you a couple seconds before we get started. I am super excited. I'm glad that we're here, that you guys are all here and decided to join us today, tonight. Um, just a sec. Just give it another couple seconds before we get going. All right, everyone. I am glad you're here. I am genuinely excited about this session. We have a lot to cover today, so I plan to move through this info pretty fast. We're going to keep it practical, and everything that we cover today is going to apply directly to how your organization actually operates. So this isn't about trends. This is not about theory. This is about what happens the moment someone reaches out to you. Now, let me ask you something. If someone reaches out to you, to your business today, how confident are you that they'll have a great experience, that they'll experience the same quality that your brand promises? Because most organizations believe that their service is strong, and it usually is. The issue isn't about the service that you provide. The issue is what happens within the first few seconds someone experiences your brand, right? So today we're going to look at how high performing teams design communication so that opportunities don't quietly disappear. Before we dive in, let's get a quick read on the room. All right, so what is your biggest concern right now? Is it A, generating more leads, or B, making sure that the leads that you already get don't leak? So go ahead and drop A or a B in the chat. Yeah, that's really interesting. See a lot of B's. I see an A, B's. Okay, so that's interesting because most teams assume that they've got a marketing problem when what they really actually have is a response design problem. And that's what we're going to be unpacking today. Let's go one layer deeper. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that no inbound opportunities slip through the cracks in your organization? Drop any number between 1 and 10. Okay. All right. I see 4, 6, 7. All right. That's cool. It's good that I don't see any twos, and most businesses aren't at a two, but they're also not always at tens either. And they usually land somewhere in the middle. And that middle space, that's where revenue leaks quietly. So let's just say we could move that number up today from whatever number that is that you placed in the chat up to closer to a 10 without adding additional staff, without any tech chaos. Would that be worth your time tonight? Go ahead and type a yes in the chat if you think moving that number up is worth some time to spend with me tonight. Awesome. Let's get going. So this is specifically for businesses generating real inbound volume. If you're getting at least 100 leads a month for the whole month, and you still feel like revenue is slipping through the cracks, it's not because you need more ads. It's because of what happens after that lead comes in. And today, I'll show you how businesses are recovering from $5,000 to $50,000 per month from the leads that they already generate. Now, let me be clear about something. The goal today is not to teach theory. I'm not here to talk about trends. I'm here to show you the exact system organizations are using right now to capture and respond consistently, and how you can implement that same structure without adding staff, without creating technical chaos, without needing someone to manage 5 disconnected tools. Now, let me ask you a question. If we can accomplish that today, would you feel like this was a worthwhile conversation and your time well spent? If so, go ahead and type a yes in the chat for me. So we're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, where communication actually breaks. Second, the 3 false beliefs that quietly cost organizations money. And third, what high-performing teams design differently. And fourth, how to think about fixing this responsibly for yourself. Not emotionally, not reactively, but responsibly. And by the end of this session, you'll be able to look at your organization differently. You'll understand why strong brands lose opportunities, where communication quietly breaks, and what structure actually changes that. This is an abstract. You'll walk away with a clear lens that you didn't already have before so that you can successfully make the shift that many high performing organizations have already made. First, let me quickly introduce myself so that you understand where this perspective comes from. My name is Glenn Bradley. I'm the founder of Big Hit Creative. For the last 2 decades, I've worked inside organizations that handle real inbound volume. We're talking universities, healthcare groups, property management teams, hospitality, government, you name it. Different industries, different structures, but the same pattern underneath. Strong brands, solid marketing, but inconsistent response systems. Now, I didn't set out to build communication systems. I kept seeing revenue leaks in the same places, not because the teams didn't care, and not because marketing wasn't working, but because no one designed what happens the moment someone reaches out. And that's where ConnectXL came from. Not as a trend, not as a chatbot experiment, but as a response infrastructure solution. So I'm glad you're back. So how did BHC get started? We didn't start out building communication infrastructure. Back in the early years, we were focused on brand, messaging, positioning, recognition, everything to do with marketing brand, right? So helping organizations get attention is what we did. Then we started working with larger, more complex teams, multi-location organizations, hospitality groups, education systems, government departments. And that's when the pattern got louder. Again, strong brand, strong marketing, weak response structure. And that disconnect cost us money, cost the client money, right? So by 2021, it became obvious the missing link wasn't marketing, it was communication infrastructure, loud and clear. Now, here are a few of our clients. Now, when you look at these logos for a second, and you'll see that there's different industries, different sizes, different structures, but every one of them had the same underlying issue: high inbound demand, inconsistent responses. So it's not just a small business problem, and it's not an enterprise problem. It's a structure problem. Here's a number that should wake everyone up. 78% of customers go with the first organization that responds. You probably know that. If not, we're not talking about the best companies. We're not talking about the first. Now, here's the problem. Very few organizations are built to be first consistently at every hour, after 5 p.m., weekends, holidays, peak volume. That's where infrastructure matters. The organizations winning don't rely on one person, one manual follow-up, a single tool, or memory. They build systems that don't depend on one hero employee. No rigid spreadsheets, no duct tape processes. There's no, did someone call them back? It just runs consistently. So today, you'll see how to get consistent responses out without hiring more staff, why most CRM deployments fail after going live, and the simple 5-step engine that helps businesses add $5,000 to $50,000 per month. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most lost revenue doesn't show up as a report. It just never happens. And that's what we fixed. And before we jump in deeper, can we commit to 3 quick things? First, let's give this your full attention. These ideas build on each other. You'll learn a lot. Second, don't set it and forget it. Any real communication infrastructure has to be implemented correctly, adopted by your team, and maintained over time. There's no magic button, just structure done right. And third, stay till the end. At the end of this session, if what I share makes sense and aligns with what you're dealing with, I'm going to invite you to take the next step with us. And that's going to be completely optional whether you do it or not. So there's no pressure. But here's the thing. I don't like teaching something this important without also showing you how to execute it properly. Is that fair? If you think it's fair, go ahead and drop a fair in the chat for me. How about that? Awesome. So, all right, quick gut check. If this statement represents where you are today, go ahead and type a true in the chat. Let's read that together. I am ready to stop losing qualified leads to slow response times and missed calls and start capturing and booking every inbound opportunity that is already coming into my organization. If that's where you are, go ahead and type a true in the chat. Now, let me make a couple things clear real quick. This is not about asking your team to work harder. Most teams are already stretched. This is about structuring conversations so that your people stop being the bottleneck. Now, when structure is missing, good people look inefficient. Now, when structure is present, even average teams look strong. Now, if you typed true in the chat earlier, this is where it starts to get real for you. Almost every high inquiry organization believes that their service is strong, and it usually is. The breakdown isn't service. It's the first interaction, the first 30 seconds, the moment someone reaches out. That's where strong organizations quietly lose ground. Now, let me show you something that I did once. I called 5 different businesses, all in the same industry, all well known, all well reviewed, all high service organizations. And here's what happened. One rang out and went to voicemail. One had a phone tree that looped me twice before disconnecting. One answered, but the person didn't even know who to transfer me to. One told me someone would call me back and they never did. Only one actually handled the first interaction properly. Now, here's the important part. If you ask any of those organizations whether their service was strong, every single one would say yes. And then they'd be right if you ever got in. But for that first 30 seconds, that wasn't designed. That's where strong organizations quietly lose ground. Now, let's be honest for a second. Have you tested your own first interaction recently? If I were to call your organization right now, what experience would I have? Your brand built the interest, your marketing generated the inquiry, but what actually happens when that inquiry lands? Does it get answered right away, immediately? Does it sit in a shared inbox? Does someone see it hours later? That exact moment determines whether that lead moves forward or not. It's not your brochure, not your website, and that's where your conversion window is, right there. Now, here's the dangerous part. The most expensive lost customer never complains. They don't usually call back to say you were slow. They don't leave a review. They just quietly purchase somewhere else. And your organization never even knew that you were in the running. That's what we call invisible revenue loss. And it happens monthly, weekly, daily, hourly. Brand isn't what you say. It's what your customer experiences. You can have a great message, well-trained team, real inbound volume. But if the experience at that point of contact doesn't match your promise, trust breaks instantly. And when trust breaks, conversions drop. After two decades inside high volume environments, I kept seeing the same pattern. Strong teams, solid marketing, real inquiries, and a response process that wasn't designed for that volume. Nobody intended to lose the revenue, but infrastructure wasn't built well. And when infrastructure isn't built, leakage becomes normal. I'm sharing this with you so that you can evaluate your own first interaction differently, not emotionally, not defensively, but structurally, okay? Now, it wasn't the brand, it wasn't the team, it wasn't the service. It was the missing layer between brand and first interaction. That layer wasn't engineered properly. And when it's not engineered, strong brands still lose ground. That's the gap. There are 3 false beliefs almost every organization holds on to. They feel logical, they feel reasonable, and they quietly cost money. Today, I'm here to shatter those beliefs. Now, before we talk systems, we have to talk mindset. Because if the belief is wrong, the solution will always miss. Most organizations misdiagnose the problem. They don't treat structure, they treat symptoms. And here's the first one. Good service means answering fast. Okay, speed does matter, but speed alone does not convert. Now, if someone gets an immediate response that doesn't actually address their question, they haven't really been served. They've been acknowledged, and acknowledgement is not a conversion. If a prospect reaches out and gets quick but vague responses, they still feel friction. Fast without clarity feels chaotic. Wouldn't you agree? Fast without routing feels confusing. Fast without context still fails. Speed is step one. Clarity is what closes deals. Now, the highest converting organizations are not just fast, they're fast and precise. The right inquiry goes to the right person with the right context already preloaded. That doesn't happen accidentally. That requires deliberate design. The first 30 seconds of any inquiry determines momentum. That's the window. Most organizations have never deliberately engineered that window. They've trained the staff, they bought software, but they've never designed the experience. And that's where we shift. Here's the second false belief. Oh, our people can handle it. And again, good people probably can handle it for a while until volume spikes, until someone is out sick, or until three things happen at once. People are not infrastructure. Now, let's be honest for a minute. Let's just say one employee, one coordinator handles check-ins, calls, form submissions, follow-ups. That's not a communication system. That's a person being asked to act like a system. And the moment that that person gets pulled into something else, that lead ends up waiting. And when the lead waits, it leaks. Quick question. Have you ever seen that happen in your own organization? And I'm just going to go ahead and ask if you'll mute your computers for just for the time being until we make it through the presentation. Then you guys can unmute and we can ask questions and we can talk about all that other stuff. But so let ask you this: have you ever seen that happen in your own organization, right? Where the lead waits and then they end up leaking away? Because humans don't scale conversations, systems do. Now, I want to be clear with you. Your team is valuable because of judgment, because of relationships, because of real conversations. They're not valuable because they manually copy contact info into a CRM. They're not valuable because they chase down missed messages. When your best people are being used as a data pipeline, you're wasting their strengths. People solve problems. Systems handle volume. Now, if your team is exhausted, but revenue still feels inconsistent, it's not effort, it's structure. You build infrastructure so your people can do what only they can do. The routing, the logging, the follow-up cadence, that's system work. The conversations that turn curiosity into commitment, now that's people work. Now, when you separate those two, performance changes immediately, and you'll notice it. Now, this one sounds harmless. If they really want us, they'll wait. No, they won't. Not anymore. We live in a world where the next option is just one click away. Waiting isn't loyalty. Waiting is friction. Friction kills conversions. Now, when someone reaches out and they hear nothing, they don't assume that you're busy. They assume that you're disorganized or uninterested or unavailable. Silence creates stories, and those stories are rarely generous. By the time you call them back, they've already rewritten the narrative in their head. And speaking of stories, let me give you a really, really quick one. A restoration company that I worked with believed they had a strong referral flow. They did, but after hours calls were going to voicemail, and no one called them back until in the morning. Now, when we traced those lost deals, we found prospects had already signed with whoever picked up at 9:15 p.m. They didn't complain. They didn't leave a review. They just quietly left. Now, have you ever lost something that you never even knew that you were competing for? Availability has to be designed. The organizations consistently winning aren't necessarily trying harder. They built something that responds every hour, every day. Responsiveness is not a personality trait. It's a revenue lever. And once you see it that way, everything starts to change. Now, if response depends on who's working, what shift it is, or whether someone remembered to check the inbox, that's not a system. That's hope. And hope is not a communication strategy. Now, would you rather build around hope or design? Would you rather be specific or just random? So let's look at the patterns that we just walked through. Speed alone isn't enough. People alone don't scale, and hope isn't a strategy. All three beliefs point to the same issue. We've been relying on effort instead of infrastructure. And when you rely on effort, you get inconsistent results. The most, the moment you realize the problem is infrastructure, not effort, the solution stops being, hey, let's hire more. It stops being retrain the team. It stops being switch CRM platforms again. It becomes, let's build the right communication structure. And once that clicks, then clarity follows. Now, this is important, guys. The shift isn't AI. It isn't software. It's not dashboards. The shift is deciding communication is something that you design and that you plan for. Technology just makes the design run at scale, but intentional design should come first, always. Now, would you agree that buying tools without design usually fails? I feel like it does. So here's how most organizations handle communication today. A lead comes in. If someone's available, they'll handle it. If not, it waits. If it waits long enough, it disappears. And there's no report that shows how many times that has happened this week or ever. That's not visibility. That's invisible revenue loss. Now I get it. Your team is working hard. This is not about blaming staff. It's about structure. When one person can cover calls, forms, chats, follow up, one person can do it until they can't anymore. And that moment, the moment that they can't, the leads fall through. You cannot solve a system gap with more effort. You solve it with better design. Right now, most organizations manage inbound communications. Someone handles it, someone else picks it up, someone catches what got missed. Design communication doesn't depend on someone catching anything. It routes it automatically. It responds automatically. It logs automatically every single time. That's the difference. Now, what would a system like that was working like clockwork change inside of your organization? Just think about it. Now, imagine this. Every inquiry gets a response within minutes. Every contact is captured and routed automatically. Follow-up runs without anyone remembering to send it. And every morning, your team knows exactly what came in, what was handled, what needs attention. And your team starts the day with clarity instead of chaos. Now, would that remove pressure from your front desk or your coordinators? What happens when this is implemented, a system like this? Response times drops from hours to minutes. After hours inquiries get handled like business hour inquiries. Follow-up doesn't depend on memory, and leadership can finally see real numbers in real time, not guessing, not stories, real actual data. That changes decision-making for the future. And for the first time, communication becomes measurable. Now let's visualize this. You open your dashboard at 8 a.m. 17 inbound inquiries came in last night. Every one of them was handled. 6 appointments already booked before your first front desk team walked in. If your average booking is $1,200, that's $72,000 in revenue secured before your first cup of coffee. That's what brand confidence feels like. Now, how different would your mornings feel if deals were already moving before anyone clocked in? Most organizations know this problem exists. Most have tried to fix it. They bought a CRM, they tried a chatbot, they hired some more people, and when it didn't fully solve it, they assumed the tools, the people didn't work. But most tools fail because they were never deployed with real design behind them. Not because they were bad, but because they were never structured correctly. A CRM without routing logic is just storage. A chatbot without escalation design is just acknowledgement. Now, here's the missing layer between brand and experience. You've invested in your brand, marketing, your positioning, you got your team trained up. Inbound volume starts to come in. What's missing is the layer that connects that brand to the actual experience at the point of contact. And that's what ConnectXL answers, right? It's the AI-powered layer that makes sure the first interaction matches the organization that you work so hard to build. Now, when people hear AI communication, they picture a little chat bubble that says, hey, thanks for your message. We'll get back to you soon. And that's not this. ConnectXL is not a generic bot. It's an intentional, configured communication stack, a system built around your inquiry type, your departments, your routing logic, your follow-up structure. It's not a plug-in, it's a deployment. Now, If you're generating any amount of leads a month, does generic routing even make sense? I don't think so. Now, this system wasn't designed to replace people. It protects them. It handles volume so that your team can focus on conversations that require judgment, empathy, and expertise. Now, when mechanics are removed, people actually get better. That's the point. If your employees spend 3 hours a day on manually logging and following up, that's 15 hours a week. And let's say at $22 per hour, that's over 17,000 per year spent on mechanical tasks. Now, what if those hours were used for closing conversations instead, income generating activities? Now, before communication was designed, leads would wait, follow up depended on whether someone would remember it. After hours, business just completely goes silent, no visibility. After it's designed, every inquiry gets immediate response. Follow up runs automatically. 24/7 coverage exists without adding any payroll. Leadership sees live data. That's not theory. This is what happens when design replaces management. I don't mean people management, I mean tool management. Now, which environment produces more predictive revenue? Now, the organizations moving first aren't doing it because it's trendy. They already did the math. Missed calls have a number attached to them. Silence has a number. Delay has a number. And once you see that number clearly, staying still feels neutral. Look, if you generate 120 inbound leads per month and 15% slip due to response delay, that's 18 opportunities lost. Now, if your close rate is 30%, that's roughly 5 bookings missed monthly. At 1,500, let's just say 1,500 per booking, 7,500 per month leaking. And that's a conservative number. Once leaders see that number, staying still is no longer neutral. Now, when infrastructure runs, response times drop, conversions improve, staff pressure decreases, growth becomes scalable. If your booking rate improves even 10% on 100 leads per month at $1,200 per average ticket, that's a $12,000 incremental monthly revenue. Is a 10% lift unreasonable or is it realistic? I mean, it sounds good, right? Now I want to ask you something. Think about last week. I just want you to think about it. How many inquiries hit your organization? How many were responded to within 5 minutes? How many follow-ups ran automatically without someone manually triggering them? How many after-hours inquiries were handled before your team walked in the next morning? Most leaders have no clue. They don't even have the answers. And that's where the gap is. Now, I want to share a story. I think I went way too far. So I want to share a story I heard from one of my mentors. He walked into a luxury dental office, designer finishes, coffee bar, flat screen. This place, just premium positioning, right? Fees over 40% and above average, right? Everything screamed world class. And then he noticed a tiny cobweb in the corner, just above the TV, just one. And once he saw that, he couldn't unsee it. Then he noticed a small tear in the wallpaper, a slightly dirty window, then 3 tiny defects. And suddenly, all the luxury just went out the window. Fragile. When he left and told someone about the visit, he didn't talk about the aquarium. He didn't talk about all the technology. He talked about that one little cobweb. And later, he calculated that between his lifetime value and referrals that he would have sent, that cobweb likely cost the dentist $50,000. One cobweb, tiny little thing, massive impact. This is called the broken window effect. Okay, so in the 1990s, New York City was struggling with crime and disorder. Instead of focusing only on the big major crimes, leadership started focusing on the small things like graffiti, litter, broken windows, just minor vandalism. The theory was simple. If you tolerate small disorder, you invite bigger disorder. Fix the small things and bigger problems shrink. And so the story ended in New York City. The crime dropped dramatically. Now, here's a connection. In modern business, broken windows aren't physical, they're operational. An unanswered call, a 20-minute hold, a form submission that sits overnight, a CRM lead that no one ever follows up with, an after hours inquiry that hears nothing until tomorrow morning. You may not notice it anymore, but your prospect does. And when someone reaches out and they hear silence, that's a broken window. If your average job is $1,500 and you miss just one booking per week due to response friction, that's $78,000 per year. Now, that's not hype, that's math. That's a $78,000 cobweb. Think about that. Most organizations measure what they close. Almost none measure what they lose before the conversation even begins. The cost doesn't show up as an expense line. It shows up as unrealized revenue, the gap between leads generated and revenue captured. Now, unanswered after hours inquiries, follow up that didn't go out, prospects who experienced silence, staff time buried in manual tasks. If you lose just 2 qualified leads per week, that's 8 per month. At a 25% close rate, that's 2 bookings lost. At $2,000 per job, $4,000 per month, $48,000 per year. Now, does that number feel theoretical or plausible? So one missed call feels small right now. One unreturned form feels manageable. But multiply that across 52 weeks, even one missed booking per week at $1,500 is a $78,000 per year loss. And because it's distributed across time, it gets deferred usually. And that's why this problem hides in plain sight. Now, let's make this practical. If your organization handles 10 bookings per week, 20% go cold, that's 2 missed bookings per week. Over a quarter, that's 24 missed opportunities. Multiply that by your average ticket amount. That's what your current infrastructure could be costing you. Now, for many businesses, that's exactly how $5,000 to $50,000 per month hides in plain sight. This is why more staff doesn't solve the problem. Hiring adds a person to a broken process. Then volume increases, the person gets pulled somewhere else, or they leave, the gap returns, payroll stays. The organizations that have solved this stop trying to hire their way or staff their way out of a system gap. They built systems first. And is staffing a system or is it a patch? The organizations that fixed this didn't magically hire better. They built better infrastructure. The same team that felt overwhelmed suddenly felt effective because the system was finally doing what it should have been doing all along. That's not talent, that's structure. Now, here's what design communication looks like when it's running. Every lead gets a response within minutes, not even 5, just minutes, at any hour, 24 hours a day. Every contact moves through the pipeline automatically. Departments receive inquiries correctly for the first time, and your team focuses on real conversations. That's what designed communication is. Now, if you generate 120 inquiries per month and even 10% currently experience delay, that's 12 opportunities sitting in friction. Let's remove that friction. You don't need more traffic. You need more lead capture. And that's where ConnectXL lives. Now, I know that I've mentioned ConnectXL a few times. Now, let me formally introduce you. ConnectXL is what happens when communication is finally designed instead of improvised. It's not software you log in and just figure it out. You have to figure it out. It's a 24/7 revenue engine built specifically for companies generating inbound leads who cannot afford slow response or missed calls. Now, if one booking is worth $1,500, 2 recovered per week is $12,000 per month. That's why ConnectXL exists. So before ConnectXL, the pattern was always the same. Strong brands, real marketing, inbound volume just coming in. And somewhere between the inquiry and the booking, leads would just disappear. The fix was never more marketing. It was always the infrastructure between the inquiry and the response. So what we did was stop trying to patch with tools, and we built the layer that was missing. Now, okay, guys, let me ask you this real quick. How many of you feel a little bit like this right now? How many of you feel like that we've covered a lot already? Uh, I know that we moved through a lot of ideas. And when this clicks, the natural question becomes, okay, but how do we implement something like this without overwhelming my team? That's exactly why we built a structured deployment framework. Now, would it be helpful if I took a minute to show you what that looks like? You guys, all right, cool. Let's do that. If I can get some yes, yeah, all right. Well, cool. Then I feel motivated to keep going. All right, so let me walk you through some of this. So let me simplify this. Inside of ConnectXL, it is a strategically configured communication infrastructure that we like to call the 24/7 revenue engine. Now, it handles inbound communications continuously. It routes every inquiry correctly, follows up automatically, books appointments whether your team is fully staffed or completely offline, meaning revenue doesn't sleep just because your office does. And we deploy it in 5 structured steps. This is not a random setup. Here's the thing: information is helpful, but implementation is what changes outcomes. So let me show you how this gets installed step by step in as little as 14 days. So, step one is simple. We look at how your organization currently handles inbound, from first contact to conversion, every single channel, every gap, every place a lead could fall through, and we document it. The result is clarity. You see exactly where revenue is leaking. You're not guessing, we're actually seeing it. Next, we map how inquiries move through your organization. What goes to sales? What goes to service? What goes to billing? What goes to scheduling? What goes to HR? Most organizations have routing by habit. We build routing by design. So every inquiry lands in the right place the first time, every single time. Meet Jenny, your AI front desk and your first response layer. Jenny answers inbound calls. Chat captures contact information, routes to the correct department, logs everything into the system, and works 24/7. Not to replace your team, but to make sure that nothing ever waits. Then we activate your CRM. Now, most CRMs are installed, they're not activated. We incorporate what we like to call smart workflows. This is real pipeline logic, automated follow up sequences, contact routing. So the system does what your team is currently trying to remember to do manually. That's when a CRM becomes most useful, when it works with your team and not against them. Finally, we install live reporting and onboard your team. So you don't inherit a tool, you inherit a working system. And leadership can walk into any meeting with clean data instead of estimates. Now, this is where confidence starts to show up. So that's the structure. Now, let me ask you something. If all this system did was to give your team back 5 to 10 hours a week, no chasing missed calls, no manual follow up, no inbox bottlenecks, would that alone be worth a conversation? What if it simply captured the leads that you were already generating? Not more marketing, not more spend, just faster, consistent responses. Would that move the needle for you in your business? What if leadership never had to ask again why booking pace fluctuates? Because the response layer was engineered. That's what this is really about. Now, let's make this practical. With ConnectXL, there's no more missed calls after hours, no delayed follow ups. You have a CRM that's activated and structured properly, a live dashboard. The system handles volume, so your people can handle conversations. That's operational excellence. This is important to note. ConnectXL is not just voice AI. It's also AI chat, multi-department routing, CRM integration, workflow automation, appointment booking, reporting. It's the entire communication stack. Jenny, of course, is the front door, but the system behind her is what makes it all so powerful. Now, this is still brand positioning, just not the kind that most people think about. Brand isn't just ads. Brand is the moment someone reaches out and someone either responds well or doesn't respond at all. That moment is your brand. Now, whether you design it or not, that's what people see. ConnectXL makes sure that you design it properly. that it's designed for you properly. Now, at this point, the gap is clear. Communication isn't failing because people don't care. It's failing because it was never intentionally designed. So the conversation shifts, not from does this matter, but to what does it take to fix it? Now, that's a fair question. I'll answer that directly. I'm glad you asked. So most organizations ask the wrong first question. Can we afford this? But that's not the real question. The real question is, what is it already costing us not to fix it? If one missed booking is worth $1,500 and you miss just one per week, that's $78,000 per year. That adds up faster than any system ever could. Now, does that kind of shift how you look at what this investment could be like? Now, let me say this plainly. The most expensive option isn't investing, it's leaving the gap open. Because the cost of slow response, the cost of missed routing, the cost of after hours breakdown, it's already happening every week, every hour, every day, right? This isn't about adding tech. It's about protecting opportunity. And if just one booking per week is slipping at $1,500 per job, that's $78,000 per year. Now, is that worth designing around something actually that could make a difference? Now, let me show you how ConnectXL is actually structured. Now, ConnectXL isn't priced like a piece of software. It's structured like infrastructure, which means pricing is based on scope and how many departments, how much inbound volume, how much automation that you need, how deeply it integrates into your organization. Some teams start focused, just one department, one workflow. Others deploy across multiple teams, multiple departments from the beginning. The important part is this, that you don't have to do everything at once. You build responsibly, and you build where the gap is costing you the most. And most businesses start in one of two ways. They begin with after hours AI voice coverage, or a full inbound deployment across calls, web, CRM activation, and then they expand once they see the lift. Because once revenue recovery becomes visible, scaling is obvious. Now, I understand how budgets work, and that's why deployments can be phased. Onboarding can be staged. Investments can align with fiscal cycles. The goal here is not to force a fast decision. It's to make a smart one possible. It's a big difference there. Now, does that feel more responsible than just installing another platform that you may just walk away from? You never know if it works. This starts to work right away. Now, at this stage, serious organizations don't debate whether communication matters. They already know it does. The real question becomes, how do we implement this responsibly with brand protection, governance, with measurable impact? This isn't about installing software. It's about installing the system your organization should have had from the very beginning. This isn't about whether communication matters. It's about whether you lead it or if you react to it. Now, if you're thinking, man, this is us, the next step is simple. If this resonated with you, the next step isn't to buy anything. It's to look at your own environment specifically. That's what the strategic communication assessment is for. And on that call, we map your current response flow. We identify where the breakdown is costing you, and we determine whether ConnectXL actually makes sense for your organization. You leave that call with clarity. Whether you move forward or not, you'll understand, you have clear understanding. And if you're generating 100 plus inbound leads per month, you'll walk away with a realistic picture of what recovering $5,000 to $50,000 per month could look like in your environment. Now, every week you wait. Every week the gap stays open, someone else responds first. Follow-up doesn't happen. After hours inquiries stack overnight. Now, if your business generates 25 inbound inquiries per week and just 2 turn cold to response delay at $2,000 an average ticket, that's $4,000 per week, $16,000 per month. Waiting has its price. Now, 1 year from now, you'll either be still wondering why booking pace is behind, or you'll be running an operation where every inbound inquiry gets a fast, consistent response. Same leads, different infrastructure, different outcome. Which future feels more controlled? Now, if you're ready to stop losing opportunities to slow response and start capturing and booking what your organization is already generating, I just recommend that you book your strategic communication assessment using that link in the chat. That's the next step. So I would say go ahead and there you are. There's the link inside the chat. Now, with that said, what do you say we open it up for some questions? What concerns can we address for you? And I'll go ahead and let's open up my chat and I will drag it over here so I can see it. If you have questions, feel free to ask away. I don't mind if you unmute or you can type it in the chat. Either way, you can unmute and speak up, or we can address it right here in the chat.
Yeah, I have a quick question. How is this different from like a chat bot? We've used one in the past.
Okay, so let me just minimize this. I'm sorry. So a chatbot answers messages. ConnectXL governs a response. It routes correctly. It logs automatically. It activates follow-up and operates across departments with structure. A chatbot is a tool. ConnectXL is an infrastructure. It lives and breathes like a human. So a chatbot has canned, programmed responses that is very limited. Okay, this is based on AI technology, right? It won't replace your team. Let's see, is this going to replace me and my team? No, no, no. It's actually there to help you and your team be more strategic, right? It's going to handle repetitive tasks, repetitive questions, so that your team is free to be creative, um, strategic, right? So that you're not always behind the eight ball. Okay. So that's actually what it does for you. Now, um, not that I recommend that you replace your team. You probably make more money and be able to hire more. It's up to you what you do with it. But again, it'll save your team some of that drama and the stress of those repetitive daily same questions here and there. And sometimes those answers are wrong or watered down as the years go by. So yeah, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to my chat bot. What if AI gives the wrong answer?
Well, the only way the AI would give the wrong answer is if we plug it in with if your data is wrong. So whatever it is that you would want the AI feature to respond with, we fill it full of your own knowledge bank, right? So if you have a PDF or you have knowledge or information is incorrect on your website, it'll give that information, right? Whatever information that you want it to share about your business, that's as far as it'll go. We don't allow it to go outside of what your business would like for your public to know. So yeah, it's all controlled, it's all governed. There's guardrails about it, all about it. So it will never give a wrong answer.
That's awesome.
I mean, unless you give it wrong answers, if you feed it wrong answers. Yeah. So, okay, so what if your volume isn't high? What if your volume isn't high? It Well, it actually does other things for you too. I mean, it's a marketing automation platform. It's a CRM. It does a lot of things that a business would need. Okay, whether you have a ton of inbound, I guess, inquiry or website chat feature inquiries, whether you do that or not, or whether that's a big piece of your business or not, we'll find out. First of all, you'll find out what if people do inquire and you never see it. And that's kind of where that missing gap, that layer is, right? Because a lot of times we don't know if we've been missing it. And that's kind of what we said at the very beginning. Sometimes we get those, potential, I guess, those people that come in at 2 in the morning, to your website, or they wake up and they're shopping for something, they're looking for something, and there's no chat feature. They can't have a communication. They can't call you. If they do call you, we already know at 2 in the morning. It's not likely that someone's going to answer the phone. But what if they do call and they leave a voicemail? Well, what's going to happen is that your AI feature is going to be alive and it's going to actually have an educated conversation. It can answer all the questions about your business. It can book those appointments. So just like I said, you will have a full calendar by the morning if you're having those inquiries through the night. So whether or not you have high volume or just volume, the whole point is to not miss any of those opportunities when you don't have to miss them. That makes sense. That hopefully I answered that question. Are there any other questions out there? Let's see what we got. Perfect. Well, yeah. So if there's a yeah, book those meetings. Let's book that meeting on me. In fact, let me go back to the link. Let's do this real quick. So um here we go. So as we wrap this up, if there's no other questions, I want to say this. People don't judge your organization by your intent. They judge it by what happens when they reach out. The clarity, the speed, the consistency. Every strong brand has a voice. Connect XL makes sure it's heard consistently with minimal effort on your part. That's the difference. So again, your brand is already speaking. The question is, does your response system match your brand standards? Does it speak clearly? Does it speak consistently? Does it speak with confidence? If not, that's not a marketing issue. That's an infrastructure issue. The good news is that it's fixable. We can fix it. So after we wrap up here, the booking link will still remain live. So if you go ahead and copy and paste it or snag it, get it out of the chat, um, or even if you prefer to just reach out directly, our contact information is right there on this slide. Go ahead and take a screenshot of that if you want. Either way, my team and I are available. We're here to help you make a smart decision. And with that, like I said, I'll give you this QR code here one more time. You can go ahead and book your free assessment. And I just want to say again, thank you for spending your time with me this evening. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Glenn Bradley, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Take care. Bye, y'all.